Howie here, bringing you another adventure video. Today, I took a road trip down to Cocoa Beach, Florida. This morning, I went to a special event presentation with Fred Banke and Terry Shannon over at Digging It Detectors. They talked about all their treasure finds over the last couple of years up here in the Treasure Coast, and they also talked about relic finding in the Dakotas, which was super fascinating. This afternoon, I'm going to make it down to the beach and actually do some treasure hunting on Cocoa Beach. Well, the first stop was at my friend's store, Digging It Detectors. Say hi to YouTube.
How are you?
Hi.
The special guests were Terry Shannon and Fred Banke. Before the presentation, both Terry and Fred shared some personal stories and answered questions. Since there was just a small group of us at the presentation, mostly members of the Treasure Coast Archeological Society, I wanted to share a few excerpts from their presentation with my loyal YouTube viewers. Don't worry, I'll keep the video clips short in this video. If you want to read about these stories and so many more, both Terry and Fred have books available on Amazon. Now, here's Terry and Fred.
I found this ring on the beach, and the coquina was showing, and it was deep, and we were digging into the coquina. And the first thing I found was this ring. This is a silver ring. And it was found amongst a whole bunch of bronze spikes that Terry had been finding that morning. You can see it's got the Maltese cross in there. And what I did was I did a lot of research on this ring. And the Knights Templars went into Malta in the 1300s, and they fortified Malta against the Turkish. They were disbanded by the Pope in I think it was 1307 or something like that. 1308, somewhere around there. Now the Spanish military had three religious groups, and one of them was the Knights of Malta. And this ring had the number 103 stamped on the inside of it, and you can't see it in here. And I didn't even think about it, and Terry did some research on that. And it turns out it's religious numbers. So 103 is very religious, and I've got a printout somewhere of all of the meanings for the 103 and everything.
And it was somebody of importance who went after 103. And his ring was found when I was finding a bunch of these spikes. And these things go back before the 1715. I mean, we were down in the coquina, and we were actually below the coquina, which is unreal. And we're down, you know, I always tell everybody about the orange sand at the original beach. Well, this was actually the almost cream, not cream color, but...
So this is a coquina down here, and this is, if you're going to find gold coins and stuff like that, it's going to be down here in the coquina. And also there's lead weights in there, all in that area.
Yeah, we were actually down below the coquina in spots. We could move some of the coquina and get down and in that real deep orange sand. And that's where Fred found the ring. And I found, and Fred had never found one of these. He's got a lot of steel.
Wait. You're getting a little bit ahead here. we don't rehearse.
Well, tell him about your ring now. His ring is pure silver.
It's 99.99% pure silver. And I did take that down to West Bay, and they said, well, they didn't have pure silver back then, but they did, see. The coins and the silver from South America were 92% pure silver. Back in England and in Europe, they're purifying silver back in the 600s. This was made in Europe, and it was worn by, I believe, a bishop or somebody really important, traveling back and forth to the New World on a Spanish ship that had bronze spikes, which dates it way back to that time as well. These are the bronze pins that Terry and I both found a bronze pin. He's got his here, and
We even found a bronze washer.
And these are all the bronze spikes Terry was finding. And I've never found a bronze spike. And I told him, I've got to find a bronze spike. So the next day we went back.
And I'm right beside it, closer than we are right now. And I scooped up this thing, and it was in the hole, stuck it straight up. I could see it. So I reached down, and I said, Fred, this is really going to make you mad, too, right in front of him. I enjoyed it, because years ago, can I tell him the story about this?
Not yet.
Okay.
And they all came out like that.
most of the spikes that come in the 1715 fleet probably, you know, and they have several theories that they say on these bronze spikes that they were used on the bottom of the ship below the waterline, or that they were used by people that had money. You know, but most of the spikes that come off 17 are iron. But I'm told.
And the really old, these are the 1600 spikes, and you can see by the grain of the metal and stuff right there that this is, you can see where it's been hammered into the wood. And I didn't bring any, but a lot of times you'll see a spike like this one right, a nail like this one right here, and it'll be tapered down to nothing, and sometimes it's in two pieces. By the time you get all the rust off there, it's in two pieces, and it's because it's been hammered into a piece of oak wood, and the oak has a natural acid to it. So what happens was it pulls out of that wooden plank is nailed to something. You pull that plank, the plank came loose, and then it just corroded the nail into two pieces.
Probably the oldest coin found on the Treasure Coast, and if it's not the oldest, it's one of the oldest. And it's a Carlos Yuana 2 real, the one on the, with all the detail on the right. And if you look up there on the left side of the coin, you can see the M. That means it was minted in Mexico. And on the other side, that G is for the assayer. And I could slaughter the name, but my gunner went to that. He only worked from 1544 to 1548. So that dates the coin. And the coin, I found both of them the same day. They were very encrusted. You couldn't tell what they were. And it was a different type of encrustation, a gray, black encrustation. They have one on the left now, and it's real plain. I found it at the same time, same spot, and that's a 4, Carlos Yuana. And Steve Hodges cleaned it up. It took me a year to get that clean there. But can you believe, look at how nice the one on the left, or on your right would be, and versus the one right beside it. And what is the story? Why would one be so nice and the other one be that worn?
Because it was so encrusted, did it ring up as silver? Did you think you had silver, or did you think you had something in between because of the encrusted?
I don't know. If it makes a noise, I dig it. I'm going to get off track for a little bit. But, you know, I'm thinking when you're on the beach and you're on a place where you can find something old, if it makes a noise, dig it up. I don't know how many times I've seen a guy stand there and he's going here with his detector looking at the numbers, and he goes over here and he looks at the numbers. You know, I just scoop it up and look at it, then I know what it was, you know, and I just don't understand that. But I got into an area where I was finding these bronze bottom sheeting nails. They're bronze, and they use it. And I had a friend of mine come down. I had the Equinox with a standard coil, and he had an Equinox with a big 15-inch coil. And I found that night, I found 14 of them, and he never found one of them right together. And it was in that heavy mineralized black sand. And I think my theory is that that black sand is highly mineralized, was actually blanking out the coil. It was, that big coil was picking up too much. And these read on the Equinox anywhere from 4 to 6, way down.
And it shows you the storm lines with the black sand. You're going to get those every storm. You'll see.
There's the top layer, all the new sand they've been putting on.
Yeah, and then you can see. This is where you find all the aluminum up on top.
I found a pendant up there, a gold pendant, and this was years ago, and it's solid gold. And I dug down and I got to like a crust. And when I broke through the crust, I found a pendant, and it's a pendant off a funeral mass for the A's or Inca or Maya Indians. And I showed it to some archaeologists, and they said that these are notoriously low carat, 8 to 10 karat gold. And because the Spanish were coming, ripping off all the, the natives and that for their gold, and they wised up and started watering down the gold. And mine is pure gold, so they figured it dates back to 1500. But the ground, I got down and it was just like a crust. And when I broke through that crust, that's what it was at. And it was just a whisper, just an absolute whisper. No signal, no reading, nothing like that.
And there's a good story on that in his new book too.
Yeah, it's the story.
So you can see the layers, and we always tell people dig down into the orange sand, and there's good stuff in that orange sand. And if you're walking down the beach and you see where the crab hole is, a lot of times the orange sand is, the crabs actually dig up that orange sand, and you'll see that on the surface. And out in North Dakota, just a real funny story, out in North Dakota, you always want to dig the gopher holes, because I found, I was metal detecting there one day, and there was pieces of glass bottle, broken glass, on top of a gopher hole. So I ran my metal detector over there, and I got 11 cartridges and one of these eagle buttons right on top of the mound by the gopher hole there. And I spent the rest of the day driving around the fields looking for gopher holes.
They done the work for you, right?
They done the work for me, digging. It was really cool. But I did, driving around, I found one more gopher hole with a eagle button sitting right on top like that. So it works.
When I found this coin, and I found two of them, I was down by the water, walking by the water, and I looked up about mid-beach, and you could see the orange splashes, and it was a ghost crab digging it up. And I went up there, and I spent 3 solid days digging. And I got 2 of these 1,500 coins doing that. It pays to look around, it pays to try something different.
How many of the 1715 fleet were not found?
Okay, there was 11 ships. There was actually 12. One was the French ship that got ahead, and they found 6. And you know, the average salvage they say is about 41 million per ship. But the 7th one is right out in front of where I live there in Melbourne, and seafarers just got a permit to salvage that ship. And when they found it, this was back when the first year I got here, and I got to meet the state archaeologist, and they invited me. You know, I went up to them with some stuff that I found and asked them if it was old, and we ended up developing a friendship, and they invited me to go out on an archaeology dig with them. And I spent 3 days with them and just had a ball, found some really neat old stuff. And when he got it all done, the archaeologist said, Terry, he said, I want to take you down the beach and point out spots where we found treasure that is not well known. And he did that the very next day. And so I wrote the mileage down in my truck, and we drove south, and he had been point where they found the gold coins and that stuff. One of the spots that he found, he pointed out, is where we found 5 of these Avriels, you know, in one day, 5 at one of his spots. We got all done, you know, and this is when I first come down here, you know, like the second year down there. And I was so excited, I want to get out on the beach, I want to be out there right now. And he said, let's stop at my place for a beer. And I don't drink beer, you know, I have hardly any bad habits at all. But the guy was so nice, I stopped for a beer. And we're drinking, he went back and he brought out a 8 real coin and he gave it to me. And the story that he told me, and it's in my book, the story he told me is that coin was on Captain Morgan's ship. And the Spanish were chasing him, chased him into the Bay of Madagascar, had him cornered. He scuttled the ship, you know, and escaped overland. They salvaged the treasure, they took it overland and put it on the ship called the Marvelous. That was 1654. The Marvelous took off, got off course, rammed another ship and was sinking, come back over and sank again, so that coin had been salvaged for it. I mean, I could hunt 2 lifetimes and not find a coin like that. It's just unreal that you can find it there.
So it's not 1715, it goes back till...
This one goes back to it was found the second time in 1654. You know, when you get done, if anybody wants pictures, and you're welcome to wear my gold chain.
This is a 12-pound cannonball that I found 2.5 feet down up in North Dakota.
Oh, Jesus.
And it just blew my ears off when the metal detector went off finding that.
That was with a legend too, right? Legend?
Yeah, with an ultra legend, yeah. And it just went crazy.
You could go bowling with that.
Yeah. I just encourage everybody to come to this store right here. You can buy a lot of metal detecting stuff online, but come here to Digging It Detectors, and you're not going to get the support that online that you get right here with these people here. They're great people, great people to work with, and really knowledgeable, and they'll help you out.
So there you have it. Those were just a few excerpts from Terry Shannon and Fred Banke's treasure hunting presentation this past March. If you want to read more about these and other true stories from these 2 treasure hunting legends, check out their books, now available on Amazon online. I'll provide links to those books in my description below. I want to thank my friends Lalani and Yamil, the owners of Digging It Detectors in Cocoa Beach, Florida, for hosting this wonderful event for the Treasure Coast Archeological Society. And of course, a gigantic thank you to my friends Terry Shannon and Fred Banke for spending the afternoon with us. As always, if you like this video, please press that like button. And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to my channel. I'll be bringing you many more adventures like this in the future. Thanks, and I'll see you on my next adventure.